excuse me. So we have got this IPv4. So this is going to have 32 bits. So 4, 4, 4, and 4. So there will be a 3.7 billion combinations that can be generated from 0 to 255. So there are a lot of combinations generated. This is IPv6. As of the course we are discussing, so we'll not be using IPv6 because it is little advanced, and moreover this does not come at free of cost, so you need to pay for it. So preferably we'll be using the IPv4. This is done. Now this is the slide where we need to start IPv4, public IPv4 examples. Now this is World Wide Web, www. Now you can have this one of the address that is public. So this is a web server. There are a lot of operations that are being happening here. So this is the public IPv4 address. This is public IPv4 address that can directly communicate with the web. Okay, that can communicate with the public platform. So similarly, we'll have the another one of the public IPv4 address. It also communicate with this one. Okay, then coming on to the company A. Now look onto the company A, beta. Here I have the private network. So private network means this is the network that can be used within the blue box, that is within the organization. So this computer, and this computer, probably they can communicate with each other using this private IP address 192.168.0 and 122. Okay, so this is the private IP address. Now it is good for the company to internal use, but what if this company wants to communicate globally with the public platform? So they need to have some gateway. So they need to have one of the gateways, so that if in case this computer wants to communicate with the World Wide Web, or this wants to communicate with this one, they cannot actually proceed with this private IP address. So they need to have one of the gateway that is provided them with the platform with which they can communicate with the global platform. Okay, so this is going to be the IP address, the public IP address, which will be provided to this particular company, using which they can communicate with the rest of the services. Similarly, this is private company, the gateway is provided to this as well. So that means the IP addresses are two type: private network that can be used for the organizations within itself, or we can have the public one. So if in case we have the public IP address, it is capable of communicating with the organizations or the World Wide Web, the services that are publicly available globally, it can access it. But if some companies are using internally, so intraday work, if they have been using, suppose within an organization LPU, so admin block is using private IP address to contact with research block is using private IP address to connect with the admin block, HR block, examination. So they probably can use the private networks. Okay, but what in case if all of them or want to connect with the Google or any such public platform or the public figure? So they need to have a gateway. So their gateway is going to be the acting as a medium between the public space and the private space. So this gateway is going to be important point in this one. Okay, then coming on to the next one, private public fundamental differences. So these are differences we have already studied. Public IP means machine is identified on the web by www. This is the identification for the public. Must be unique across the whole web. That means no two machines can have the same IP address. So it needs to be completely unique for the machine to be present onto the public IP addresses. But in case of can be geo located easily because it is uniquely present. So no two companies can have the computers can have the same IP addresses in the public one, so it can be identified easily. So private means the machine can only be identified in a private network only. That means internally for to any given organization, IP must be unique across the private network. So within the organization, it needs to be unique. But two different private networks, two companies can have the same IPs. Okay, so this is also one of the point. Machines connect to World Wide Web, that is public platform, using ANAT or Internet Gateway. So this is a proxy server with which they connected to the public platform. One is specified range of IPs can be used as a private IP. Okay, so multiple IPs can be used collectively. Then elastic IPs, this is what we have seen. When you stop and start the Ec2 instance, it changes its public IP address. If you need to have a fixed public IP address, for instance, you need to have an elastic IP address. This we have seen already. And elastic IPv4 is there as long as you do not delete it. Okay, so it will be stayed as long as you are not going to delete it. You can attach it to one instance at a time. So this is done. Elastic IP is done. So let's move on to the next one. So this is about the first topic for our today's session, that is placement groups. Okay, now placement groups better depending upon, see, depending upon the instance. Let me move back. Let me open the beta whiteboard. Okay, so give me a second. Okay, so we are going to start with the placement groups. See, better to understand the placement groups, first of all, we need to understand the instances, the EC2 instances that we are creating. Better these EC2 instances, this depends upon different parameters. Okay, these depend upon different parameters. Like, for example, this can be cluster, spread, or partition. So this can be cluster, spread, and partition. So you can categorize between the cluster, spread, and partition. Okay, now these are the placement groups. That means while you are creating an instance, beta, you can either place your instance in the cluster, or you can have your instance created inside the spread, or you can create it inside the partition. Now what basically this means is, I hope beta everyone is able to see the screen, or let me share this. Okay, so I hope beta you are able to see this. Is it visible?
Yes, sir, visible.
Okay. So E2, we are starting with the placement groups. Okay, beta, placement groups can be categorized into three types: either cluster, spread, or partition. Okay. Now cluster means that you want to create EC2 instances within a cluster. Like आप एक bunch में EC2 instances को create करना चाहते हैं. Benefits will be that in case you want to have a high availability. So high availability, that means high availability, lesser latency, times will be there if you are going to create the multiple EC2 instances within a cluster. If one of the instances is going to be down, the another instance can be taken up very easily. So that is the purpose of creating the EC2 instances within a single cluster. Okay. Then second one is the spread. Spread means, suppose if all the instances are connected together, if one of the instance goes down, you don't want it to affect the rest of the instances. That means the fault tolerance or the failure. So in case we have a failure, beta, you want your the instances to be distributed. Okay, distributed means they should be independent of each other. So they needs to be independent of each other, that do not have the dependency. So please, one of is going to be, if suppose this is going to be faulty, if this is going to be faulty, the rest can take up the task simply, and it can perform all other duties. Okay, this is faulty. So then the third one is going to be the partition. Partition means we are going to divide the EC2 instances based upon the region in which we are going to create. Okay, so we'll see the practical of this, how this is going to provide us the better understanding. So let's move to our management console. So I'm going to use the management console. Let me open the management console. Okay, so I'm going to share the screen. But am I audible now? I have just logged into the management console. Okay, so we are going to start with EC2 instance. I'm going to show you EC2 instance. Internet is slow a little bit. Okay, so Let's see if we have the instance, any of the running instance. I don't think. Okay, so we don't have the running instances. The very first thing beta we need to do is scroll in here, and you will see under the networking and security, you will see the placement groups. Can you see these placement groups? So placement groups, I'm going to click on here. So you will have the placement groups. So create a placement group. Okay, the name of the placement group can be the any name. Suppose I want to have the demo cluster group. Okay. I am going to use the cluster, create a group. I've created one group, placement group created. You will see demo cluster group I have created and a group ID. This is going to be a group ID. Let's create a few other cluster group. So apart from the cluster, let's create the demo spread group. So this is demo spread group, and I'm going to click on the spread, create group, and let's create the one last one for distributed. Okay, create the placement group, demo distributed group, and there are third one that is partition. Okay, let's write demo partition group to be more clear. Demo partition. Demo partition group. When you click on the partition, better you'll get a multiple option number of partitions that you want to have. So the group can be partition either from 1 to 7. You can choose any number. Let's create 7 partitions, the number of partitions to create this placement group. So I've clicked on 7 partitions. So create a group. So I have created 3 different placement groups. Now, what is the purpose of these placement groups? When you are going to create the new instance, better you can have the either you can classify the into cluster, or you can classify into partition, or you can classify into spread. So there are different partition groups that we have created, and based upon these partitions, we can create an instance, and that will fall under this any of the placement group. Now what is going to be the benefit? The benefit I have already told you. The benefit is going to be, let me show this, the benefits of creating the, so before we can create an instance and allocate the further placement groups, so let's discuss the benefits of this one. Okay, okay, so in the placement group, sometime you want to control over the Ec2 instance and placement strategy. This strategy can be defined using the placement groups. Now what basically placement groups are going to do, you create a placement group, you specify one of the strategies for the group where you want actually to place your Ec2 instance. Better like in if you know already that earlier times when we used to have phones with a keypad where we used to press multiple times for a text to appear, उस cases में हम groups बनाते थे that I want to send particular message to these 10 recipients and I want to create another group to send a message to the another 10 recipients. So that is just a cluster we are forming of different users. In the same way, we can make the placement groups. It is the same, the placement groups within which we can create the different instances. We can have the three different types of partitions or three different types of strategies. So we have seen it already. We have created the placement groups. Cluster instances is a low latency. That means the latency or the delay is going to be low group and is within the single availability zone. So make sure they are having a single availability zone. If one of them is created in Mumbai, the another one also needs to be present in the Mumbai to have a low latency, low delay. So if your business is running in such a way that you cannot afford to have a delay, you can create your EC2 instances in a cluster in which you will have a low latency. Second one is spread. Spread means spread instance across the underlying hardware, maximum 7 instances per group per as per the AZ. AZ means availability zone. So you can have the spread instances across underlying hardware, maximum 7 instances per group. That means you can have the spread it across the multiple areas for a particular instance. The third one is a partition. Spread instances across many different partitions which rely upon different set of racks within availability zone. Scales from 100 EC2 instances per group like Hadoop, Crafter. So these are the few of the strategies with which the partition is going to work. That is beyond the scope. Now, as of now, we need to create the beta placement groups, and these placement groups are going to be performing. These placement groups are going to be performing collectively with each other. Okay. Now let's try to see PC2. Now placement group spread and placement group cluster. So first of all, let's see the placement group cluster. So these are the multiple EC2 instances within the same rack and within the same availability zone. Same rack means within the same placement group you have created the multiple EC2 instances. Pros is great networks because all of them are directly connected with each other. So 10 Gbps bandwidth. So latency is extremely low. So it is going to have a low latency. Enhanced networking is enabled. Cons, if the rack fails, all instances fail. So if this blue color line is going to fail, sabhi ke sabhi instances within this can fail. Okay. So this is one of the advantage and disadvantage for the cluster. Coming on to the next one is the spread. Spread means that it is present not only, you can see this is the multiple availability zone. US East 1 में बेटा एक आपका EC2 इंस्टेंस का क्लस्टर है, एक US East 2 में आपका क्लस्टर है, US East C में क्लस्टर है. That means spread means you are going to allocate the EC2 instances not only the same availability zone but in the different availability zone. What is going to the benefit? If tomorrow, let's suppose if US East 1A goes down, US East 1 is go down, still the US East 1B and 1C is going to function absolutely perfect. Okay, so that's a benefit of spread. So pros kya hai? Can span across the availability zones, reduce the risk of simultaneous failure. So it reduces the risk of simultaneous failure. EC2 instances are on different physical hardware. So cons kya hai? Limited to 7 instances per availability zone per availability group. So maximum up to 7 instances can be created, not more than that. So that's the second one. The third is the group partition. Okay. So partition once within the one group, you can have the multiple partition, and the same partition you can have in the third group. So up to 7 partition per availability zone can span across the multiple availability zone. Hundreds of EC2 instances can be created. So these are the few of the advantages of the placement group. So now let's try to create our placement group. Let's try to launch an instance under this placement group. So okay, beta, everyone can turn off your videos, not required anymore. So I'm also going to do it because otherwise the internet is going to be fluctuating. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Okay. So beta, right now I'm going to start with the execution. I'm going to create an instance. Okay. So simply go to EC2 dashboard. We have created 3 groups, placement groups. Go to the EC2 dashboard. Go to the instance, launch an instance. One second. Okay, now since let's go and launch our EC2 instance. So let's name it any instance, instance 1. Nothing required to change here. This is done. Instance type is done. Key pair. Let's not network, create existing one. Launch wizard 1. Let's use it. Okay. And the configuration store advanced details. When you'll go to advanced details, but here you will see the placement group in the advanced details. When you'll go to the advanced details, here you'll see the placement group name. So you can click on the create new placement group, or you can simply click on here. So you'll see demo cluster group, demo partition group, demo spread group. Okay, so demo partition group, already number of partitions we have created 7, so you'll have this one. So you can click on if it is a spread group, partition group, or cluster group. So I have defined the group. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Peter, am I audible to you?
Yes,
I
sir,
know
you are.
that. Yes, sir.
Okay. So since we have already created the placement group, so I can choose this particular instance one. Now I want to launch this instance one in any of the placement group. Okay. So I can launch this instance in, let's suppose, cluster group. I click demo cluster group, and nothing is required to be changed here. Let's keep as it is and let's launch the instance. Okay, let's launch our instance. Cluster placement group are not supported by T2 micro instance type. Okay, specify supported instance type or change the placement group strategy and try again. Okay, let's move back our instant one. T2 micro. Let's remove this instance. let's have this instance 1 free tier eligible Amazon Linux 2 AMI. Okay, and instance type T2 micro. Cluster launch initiation is failed. Okay, so
सर एक बार प्लेसमेंट ग्रुप को चेंज करके फिर से ट्राई करते, क्लस्टर की जगह पार्टीशन लेके।
जस्ट हाँ मैं वही देख रहा हूँ, पता क्लस्टर को तो डिलीट ही कर देते हैं। Let's try. It should work otherwise. So it's very simple. None of the changes are required.
हो गया सर, हो गया।
Demo partition spread group देखें। Okay, done. So you will be able to launch this instance. Okay, so instance 1 is running. So better under networking, you will see that here you'll have the network interface. So network interface, you'll have a network interface. You'll have the here you'll have the placement groups, elastic IP addresses. Subnet, date of time, security groups, interface. It is connected. Okay, so this is created in a zone AP South 1A. Okay, so in AP South 1A, this is connected. Security networking. Okay. So this is how better you are actually you can create the multiple placement groups, and using these placement groups you can have the data that is going to be stored within that placement groups. Okay. So apart from this, the another one will be after placement groups. We need to discuss the elastic network instances. Yeah, elastic network interfaces. So let's see what is the elastic network interfaces. So let's discuss the elastic network interface. So, but a elastic network interface, as you can understand, it is going to be the networking device, and we call it as a ENI. The short form is ENI. Now you can understand it as a better. Here we have one of the instance EC2. You can have one as the default ETH primary ENI, primary elastic networking interface is there, and it has provided with our one of the IP addresses. So it has provided, this is a default one. Okay, every instance is going to have one of the private, or the sorry, one of the primary ENI. So this is default. The moment you create instance, primary ENI is going to be there, and this is the another instance, and primary ENI is here present. But what you can do is you can attach a separate private IP address to the existing ENI. Okay, मतलब क्या है कि this is what the EC2 instance you have created. बेटा इसके साथ ये आपको प्राइवेट एड्रेस ऑलरेडी मिलेगा. दिस इज ऑलरेडी अटैच टू इट. फॉर दिस इंस्टेंस यू ऑलरेडी गेट दिस प्राइवेट आईपी एड्रेस अटैच टू इट. बट एक इंस्टेंस के साथ यू कैन लिंक मल्टीपल प्राइवेट एड्रेसेस. सो दिस इज द अनदर ENI secondary ENI created by the user. Will be creating this now. We can create this secondary ENI and we can link it with the existing EC2 instance. फायदा क्या है बेटा? व्हाट इज द बेनिफिट ऑफ लिंकिंग वन मल्टीपल आईपी प्राइवेट आईपी एड्रेसेस टू द सिंगल इंस्टेंस? व्हाट इज द बेनिफिट ऑफ डूइंग सो? बेटा टुमारो आई कैन डी लिंक दिस, आई कैन अनरजिस्टर दिस आईपी एड्रेस, यहां से इसको उठा के सेम आईपी एड्रेस को हम लोग दूसरे इंस्टेंस के साथ भी लिंक कर सकते हैं. So can you tell me what is the benefit that we are achieving with this one? Suppose tomorrow EC2 this particular instance goes down, all and if this is going to be down, the primary ENI is also going to be down, and using this secondary ENI we can reroute and the entire traffic of this particular EC2 instance to this particular EC2 instance using this private secondary ENI that we have created. Okay, that's the purpose of secondary private ENI. This is a private address, by the way. This is not the public one, but it can be moved. It can be moved from one instance to the another instance. We'll see that how we can move it. We'll try to, बेटा अब हम क्या करेंगे, एक सबसे पहले ENI क्रिएट करेंगे. उस ENI को पहले हम एक इंस्टेंस के साथ अटैच करेंगे. Then we'll try to de-attach it and we'll try to attach it with the different instance. Okay, so let's try to read first of all what it says, that logical component. It's not a physical, it's a logical component in a VPC virtual private cloud that represent a virtual networking card. So it's a virtual network card. The ENI can have the following attributes: a primary private IPv4, one or more secondary IPv4. Okay, so one private IPv4, that is the default one. The moment you create EC2 instance, the primary IPv4 the address will be given. Okay, तो ये हमने जैसे भी हम लोग instance, let me बेटा share the entire screen, give me a second. Okay, so beta it is the ENI can have the following attributes written: the primary private IPv4, that is the default one, and one or more secondary IPv4. कि हम लोग इस तरीके से we can create multiple secondary IPv4. Primary IPv4 कौन सा होता है? So if I need to move in here, so this is an instance. If I need to see this instance, just give me a second. Okay, this is instance 1. So under networking, but at the moment you create the any of the instance, public IPv4 and the private IPv4 address, these are the default ones. So no matter what you create, you will always be having the IPv4, public IPv4. You can see public IPv4 address is this one, private IPv4 address is this one. So this is already created. Okay, and you can say this ENI, this is the if you can say here ENI 0780, this is the default one, beta. This is created at the time of creation of the creation of this instance. So what we can do is we can add a multiple, yahan pe we can add multiple one, and we can link it to the existing instances. Okay, so it is written you can create ENI independently and attach them to the fly or move them to EC2 instances for failover. That means failover matlab whenever any of the instances is going to fail. So for that reason, we can attach multiple IP addresses so that if one of the instances is going to fail, we can reroute the traffic using the ENI that we have created. Bound to the specific availability zone, कि ये भी आपका बेटा सिर्फ एक availability zone के लिए applicable है. If you have created ENI in one of the zone, so might not work in the another one. तो different zone के लिए आपको different ENI create करना पड़ेगा. Okay, so this is the point. So let's move and see ENI. Move to the network interfaces. But as you move to the network interfaces, I have not created this. ENI, this one, subnet this, VPC this, availability zone applicable to only AP South A. So this is the default one, default ENI elastic network interface. This is a default one that is created, instance ID, and you can see it is in use. It is currently in use. Why it is currently in use? Because it is attached to the this particular instance. It is automatically attached to this particular instance, and which is having this public IP, and this is the private IP. Okay, so all the information is present here. Now we can, now this is the default one which automatically gets created, but I am now going to create a manual one. I'm going to create the another one. So description demo ENI. Okay, now here the subnet, you can choose any of the subnet here, but now since it is applicable to, I have shown you, beta just give me a second. ये कौन से एरिया में? AP South 1A. So availability zone is AP South 1A. So if I'm going to create the new one, so I need to select AP South 1A. So this only I need to use a subnet which is AP South 1A. So you cannot choose AP South 1C, 1B, because if you change the region, this will not work. Okay, so I'm going to choose AP South 1A. It has a demo ENI. I'm going to create, and you can assign auto assign private IP. This is the secondary one, secondary private IP address. It can auto assign it, or if you have the customer one, you can assign it here, but I'm going to keep it as a auto assign. Let's have everything like this one. Advanced setting, IPv4 prefix, no, don't do it anything here. Okay, security group, let it have a default one, and create a network interface. Okay, done. But now you can see one of this is going to be attached directly to see if I need to demo ENI. Can you see this? But this is one I have created just now. This is a demo ENI, and it is available for use. It is not being assigned anywhere, but the already existing one, this is the default one when it got automatically created when the instance is launched. So what I'm going to do is, beta, I'm going to attach this available demo ENI. बेटा इसको हम लोग किसके साथ instance attach कर देते हैं? The existing instance. Okay, we'll try to add it to the existing instance. So we need to click on demo instance one, move to actions. Now there are multiple options. Let's click on attach, and when you click on attach, this will be attached with the only instance one. So if you have the multiple instances like instance 2, 3, 4, 5, here a drop down menu, you'll have all the instances, but right now I have only one instance working. So I'll click on this instance. So customly created ENI that I've created, I'm going to attach it here. Okay, Now successfully created and attached. So now demo ENI is attached. You can see both the instance IDs are same. This is attached to one instance ID. Status, both of them are going to be used. Okay. Now public IPv4 address will remain same. Public IPv4 address will be remain 1, but it is going to provide, now you see here better, the primary IPv4, private IPv4. So this is one of the private IPv4, and this is another one of the private IPv4 that we have got. Okay, can you see this? Now let's move to our instance, and let's move to our instance 1. Okay, this is instance 1, and under networking, here you saw only, but see here earlier you saw only ENI. That's a default one. It has public one as well as private one, so that's the only one present. But right now you can see I have attached demo ENI also with it. It already had one more private IPv4 address. So what's the benefit of doing this? In case this particular ENI, this is going to be not functional, if in case there is a failure somewhere, so instead of this, because this will not be working then, so you can automatically, you can move this to the another one. You can reroute the traffic using this demo ENI. Okay, let's start this one as well. This is terminated. Okay, let's launch one more ENI beta, network interface. एक और launch करते हैं. I need to explain you one more thing. Let's light demo ENI2. Okay, I'm going to launch to AP South 1C. Listen carefully. I'm not, because my current region is AP South 1A, I'm going to launch it here. Okay, so auto sign, let it be the default security group, create a network interface. Now I'll see I have got demo ENI2. Okay, now demo ENI2 is currently available. It has not been into use. So let's see if I can attach this. I'm going to click on this demo ENI2, and let's move to action. Let's try to attach it. So what message you have got? No running stopped instances in AP South 1C. Okay, so that means you have seen it already, that this is applicable to the availability zone. So in whatever availability zone you have, you will be able to attach in that, because I have created this ENI for AP South 1C. So but I don't have any of the instances that are, this is in AP South 1A, AP South 1A, so this is not applicable. So I will not be able to. Let's move this, detach, this is delete. I'm going to delete this one. Okay, and let me show you one more thing in this. If I'm going to, so this is my instance. Okay, this is network interface, and let's move on to instances. If I'm going to stop this instance, so what are the instance I was having? If I'm going to stop this, and if I'm going to refresh this one, it is still stopping. And you terminate this instance. Okay, move back to the network interfaces. When you refresh the network interfaces, beta, you will observe one of the ENI is automatically gone. Beta, which of the ENI is automatically gone? which was the default created, because this is my demo ENI. I have created this manually. So this is demo ENI, and it is again available. Why is it available? Because it was associated with one of the instances and it has already been gone. So this is the demo ENI. That means whatever network interface you are going to create, that is the power of AWS. Whatever network interface you are going to create, but this will not be deleted. All the default one that is created along with the instance, it has already been gone. Okay, so you can delete this as well. So we need not to have this anymore. So we have practiced this. I'm going to delete this instance. Okay, so beta, are you with me on this? Are you getting this one?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this was we have discussed placement groups and we have discussed the ENIs. Let's move and see the next one. But lasting network interfaces we have. अच्छा बेटा एक चीज रहेगी, we need to create multiple instance. हमें एक instance से हटा के इसको दूसरे के साथ attach करना है. So this point is left. Let's try to do this. So for that, okay, so I'm going to launch some instances. So I'm not going to give any name. It will be random 64-bit instance type, key pair. Let it be new key pair. Networking, select existing, default, configuration store, new volume. Okay, so everything is okay. So number of instances here are written 1. So let's create, instead of 1, I want to create 2 instances. Okay, so let's try to launch one. We have launched 2 instances without name, but I have not given any of the name. So you can see these 2 instances that are pending. These are automatically 2 instances are created. Okay, so these 2 instances that we have just created, but each of these 2 is associated with one ANI. So this one with the last value F1 is going to be associated with one ENI. You can see there, this is associated with one ENI. And if I'll click on the next one, 3F, this is also associated with one of the ENI. Both of them are already associated with one of the ENI. Let's move on to the network interfaces. But do you see automatically 2 ENIs are created? These are the default ones. These are the default one. Let's create another ENI. So demo ENI subnet 2F. Let's have a default. Create network. Okay, so we have got, but two of this ENIs are already associated, one with instant ID, this one, another one is associated with this one. But the third one that I have created, it is still not attached with anyone. So this is demo ENI. We'll try to do this, but पहले हम उसको इस इंस्टेंस के साथ कनेक्ट करते हैं. Okay, then we'll try to detach it and connect it with this instance. So it's very easy, the same process that we have done. Click on the instance. So I'm going to click on this instance, attach it to, see, you have got 2 instance. But किसी के साथ भी, let's suppose if I'll attach it with F1, I have attached it with F1. Okay, now let's move to the instances, and F1 I have attached with this particular instance. And when we'll go to the networking, here you will see the 2 ENIs are there. One ENI is demo ENI is already allocated with the different private IPv4. But whereas if I need to check it for the 3F instance, for this 3F instance, if I'll check this, you will still find there is only one ENI. Okay. So what we can do is again move to this one, networking interfaces. Just hold on, not networking interface. Okay. Networking interface. Okay. Now demo ENI, this is demo ENI, the last one. I'll click on this last demo ENI, and first of all I'm going to, so it is already attached, so I'm going to detach this. Let's detach this one, and now this is detached. It will again be in a demo ENI. Still it will take some times to reflect the change. Let's refresh this demo ENI. It reflects still in use, but it will be available here. It will take some time. See, it has automatically been available. Now since it is again available, so let's try to pick up the same ENI and let's try to attach the middle one is demo ENI. Okay, we need to put down this instance. So let's, okay, this is done for 3F and we can attach it. Okay, but it will take some time to reflect the change. The moment it gets terminated, the attach option will be enabled and you can attach it to the different IP. I hope you can do this. But can you do this? Can you link this instance to the another one? So in the same way we have linked it to one of the instance, you can detach it from that particular instance and you can link it to the another one. Okay. So I'm leaving this task for you. Let's move on and see the next topic. But the next topic is going to be after this EC2 ENI in Elastic Networking Interface. Then the next topic is EC2 Hibernate. Okay, EC2 Hibernate. Now, beta, why this topic is important? Because sometimes these we have been stopping, terminating, relaunching this instance very frequently. So in everyday class, we relaunch the instance, we stop it, we terminate. Now imagine, beta, in one of the, what is this instance? These are the virtual servers. Okay, these are the virtual servers. Now imagine on this virtual server EC2 instance, there's a very important application that is being deployed. Okay, very important application, very heavy application that is being deployed. So will you be every time terminating the instance then relaunching? In practical, no. The answer is no. So what we do, we hibernate the instance. And what do we mean by the hibernation? Hibernation means we are temporarily going to put it down, but the settings and all the data in the device are going to be stored and will be retrieving it again. Instead of starting the instances from the very scratch, we are going to hibernate the existing instances and we are going to reboot the instances. So it's written very clearly. We know we can stop, terminate instances, but practically we generally do not prefer terminating the instances this frequently. Okay. Now stop means the data onto the disk. What is this EBS? Elastic block storage. This will be our next topic, elastic block storage. So stopping the data on the disk is kept intact and in the next start. Okay. So if you stop the instance, the data will be saved and you can start the instance and it will keep intact. Okay, it will keep intact. Now when you see the terminate, any ESB volumes, elastic block storage volumes, which are associated with the root also set up to be destroyed is lost. बेटा ध्यान से पढ़ो ये लाइन, मतलब क्या है कि जब तक तो आप इंस्टेंस को एक स्टॉप करते हैं, व्हेन यू स्टॉप द इंस्टेंस द डेटा इज केप्ट इंटैक्ट, तो आपका डेटा वैसा का वैसा ही रहेगा. You can start the instance and nothing is going to be lost. But when you terminate, any EBS volumes, जो भी आपका बेटा इलास्टिक ब्लॉक स्टोरेज पे जो भी आपका डेटा प्रेजेंट है, बेसिकली द रूट वॉल्यूम इज को बी डिस्ट्रॉयड एंड इज लॉस्ट. तो जैसे ही आप बेटा टर्मिनेट करेंगे, जो भी आपका रूट वॉल्यूम पे डेटा है, इट इज गोइंग टू बी डिस्ट्रॉयड एंड इट इज गोइंग टू बी लॉस्ट. In order to solve this problem, we use the concept of hibernation. This is not very commonly used, but this is an important concept to understand. And on start, the following happens. The first start, the OS boots, the EC2 user data script is run. Okay. When the instance is going to start, what are the steps that are going to happen? First start, the operating system is going to boot. The EC2 user data or the bootstrap script is going to be loaded and it is going to be run. Following start, the OS system boots up, then your application starts, cache gets warmed up, and it can take a time. If you terminate, beta every time operating system को boost करना पड़ेगा, every time EC2 user data script को run करना पड़ेगा, and every time cache memory needs to be warmed up, and it is a very time consuming process. Suppose beta you have a very heavy server, you terminated it, okay, now you want to relaunch it. When you're trying to relaunch it, it will take hours to come back because it is a very heavy one. So what we do it, beta, we use the concept of hibernation, in which we try to store the present state. We are going to store the present state, and whenever we want to move back from hibernation to the running state, so no pre-processing is required, no operating system reload is required, no user data script is required to run. It will be in a working state. But similar like our laptop or computer system hibernation, but data will still remain in your main memory, so it need not to boot it again, which is a very time consuming process. Okay, so that is our hibernation. So it will be more clear to you beta from this one. So let's try to understand using this EC2 hibernation. So introduction to EC2 hibernate, the in memory, okay, यहाँ से पढ़ते हैं बेटा. So EC2 instance आपके पास, this is in a running state. Okay, you want to hibernate it. If you want to hibernate, whatever data is present in the RAM, beta, it will be stored in the root EBS volume, which is encrypted. Okay, आपका on एक instance है, suppose demo instance 1 is running. I want to terminate that instance. I will be doing hibernation, and if I do hibernation, all the data present in the RAM, it will be stored in the root volume EBS elastic block store, which is encrypted. This is important. It needs to be encrypted, then only you can have the hibernation. Now, once everything stored in the RAM is stored into this drive, then it goes to the hibernation. So this is a process of hibernation. So it will stop. When it is going to stop, whatever data is present in the RAM, exactly same data will be present in the root EBS volume. It will shut down. It is stopped. Now EC2 instance is empty, so there is nothing present in this. Now if you want to start, beta, if you want to start, you need not to reload everything, because your current or the last state, आपका जो भी ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम था, करंट प्रोसेसिंग थी, जो भी आप काम कर रहे थे, whatever the present state was stored inside the RAM, you pick up this state from the RAM and you immediately load it, and you will be in a running state. Okay, you need not to run all the instances all over again, which will take a time to boot. Operating system को boot होना पड़ेगा, and lot of other things are required to be started when the instance is going to start. In order to solve this problem, this is the steps that you can follow. If it is a running state, store the data in EC2 volume, hibernate it, it will be stopped, and the data is deleted from EC2 instance because it is stored in the EBS volume. And if you want to start it, you can run it, but the data this time will be loaded from the RAM instead of booting from the very scratch. Are you able to understand what this is all about? बेटा समझ आ रहा है? Are you able to understand this? We'll do the practical, don't worry. We'll try to use the practical as well. Are you able to understand this? But are you with me on this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So let's see this. So it is written, the last little thing we need to revise before we can actually move on to the practical of hibernation. So the in-memory RAM state is preserved. So that means whatever the current RAM state is, it is going to be preserved. The instance boot is much faster. So what if we are going to load it from the RAM, better the instance booting is going to be much faster because the operating system is not stopped and restarted. So you're not going to stop the operating system and restart it. Under the hood, the RAM state is written to the file in the EBS volume. This is the storage one. EBS is the storage. Okay, the RAM file is going to be written in the EBS volume, and this EBS volume is again going to be loaded to the RAM. Okay, the root EBS volume must be encrypted. Read this very carefully. This is very important point. Agar aapka root EBS volume, that means the storage, if it is not encrypted, better you will not be able to have the hibernation. So encryption is important. Okay, use cases where you can use this hibernation. Kahan pe beta ye use hokte hain? Long running processings. If they're long running processing, if 4 hour, 6 hour, 8 hour, you can put the system on hibernation instead of shutting it down. Saving the RAM state. Okay, service that take time to initialize. Suppose there are services, if you restart the instance, that take very long time to initialize. So we don't want to waste that time. So we, in that case, we can use this hibernation. Okay, so let's move back to our console. This is Ec2 networking. Let's close this one. Ec2 instance. And by the way, let me delete this network interfaces. Okay, this is demo ENI. Delete. Instances. Okay, so everything is terminated. AP South, nothing is working. So the first thing, beta, we'll be moving on to the network, and you'll see here option hibernation. Just give me a second. Okay, so let's click on launch instance. So I'm going to launch an instance. Okay. Let it to be my instance 1. Nothing is required. Done. Instance is 64-bit AMID. Instance type is this one, key pair. Let's have it demo instance. Networking creator existing pair. let it be default and configuration. We'll come back to this, but this is important. We'll come back to this configuration store, but before that, let's try to instance IP host uh, shutdown behavior, stop hibernate behavior. Can you see this stop hibernate behavior? So we need to go on here and you will need to enable it here. Okay, so to enable hibernation, space is allocated onto the root volume. But a root volume के अंदर कुछ space, because whatever is stored onto the RAM, my instance, beta whatever my instance one is having in its RAM, it needs to be stored into EB2 EBS volume. Beta volume के अंदर store होना चाहिए and store in my instance and RAM. Make sure that the root volume is large enough to store RAM contents and accommodate your expected usage. बहुत important point है that इसका मतलब जो आपका RAM है बेटा, so whatever the memory is present in the RAM, आपका जो EBS है, it needs to have a more storage. Then only the root volume is, it is written the root volume is large enough to store RAM and can accommodate the expected uses like operating system, applications. Okay, so all these things are required. So how we can check this? Beta, this is you can see we have configure, we are going to store the storage volume, one volume, and the capacity is going to be 8 GB. So we have total of 8 GB of capacity. But when we'll move on and if we'll need to check it on the T2 micro, here you will see family T2 vCPU, एक virtual CPU. Beta vCPU क्या है? We'll be discussing vCPU, and you will see beta 1 GB memory is there. Okay, so 1 GB memory is there. So we have total 8 GB in total. So that's good to go. We can have the hibernation because we have 8 GB in total. EBS storage, elastic block storage is 8 GB, but our instance is of 1 GB. So we will not be having any such problem. So this we have studied. I have enabled it. Now coming back to beta configuration store, click on the advanced and volume 1 root. See here it is written volume 1 AMI. This is root 8 GB EBS storage. Click on this and here you will see beta encryption. It is written no. So we have studied here is that root EB2 volume must be encrypted. So it is mandatory to encrypt the volume. So I'll move back and encrypt here. I'll say yes, it needs to be encrypted. And this is the different type of encryption, default AWS EBS. These are default encryption mechanism. Okay, so we need to make changes inside this EBS volumes, then only we'll be having the encryption. Okay, now this instance is done. We have done everything. This is enabled, where it is. कहाँ गया? Placement. Yes, stop hibernation behavior is enabled. Let's launch the instance. Success. Okay. Done. So we have got this instance. This is still in a pending state. Let it run. Now, beta pata kaise chalega that when I'll put this instance on a hibernation, then I'll bring it back to the running state, that it is not rebooting, that it is going to reserve my current state. How we'll be able to get this? So we have a way to find out. So let's click on, okay, not this. So I'm going to have my instance. This is running state. Let's click on connect. But do you remember Ec2 Instance Connect? There are 3 different or 4 different ways. One is using web-based Ec2 Instance Connect we can do. On the Mac machine, we can have the terminal. From that also you can do Ec2, the AMI Linux-based command shell. We can execute that from using Windows as well. So I'm going to check this Ec2 Instance Connect. Let's connect this. Okay. Let's see if it is working. Okay. We were unable to connect to an instance. Make sure that the instance network settings are configured correctly. Ec2 Instance Connect. Okay, configure network access. Mm-mm. Let me stop the instance and rejoin the instance. Subnet VPC security groups. Does it have SSH? See, beta, we don't have SSH. That's why it is showing. So I need to add a rule for 22 custom anywhere IPv4 save rules. Done. Let's move on to the EC2 instances. I have got one message. So storage must be encrypted. Yes, that's the key point. Beta, I have shown you already. Storage EBS volume वो encrypt होना चाहिए. Then only hibernation is possible. So this is the important point. Okay. And now let's try to connect it once again. ठीक है बेटा. I hope you understand what was the issue. Beta, SSH protocol port number 22 was not there. I have added it, and now we are able to use this. So if I'll say uptime, okay. So I have simply written the uptime beta for my instance. Okay, you'll see for uptime for my instance, you will see there it is written 3 minutes. Can you see this 3 minute? Beta, can everyone see this 3 minutes? Uptime is 3 minutes. Can you see this uptime is 3 minutes? So this is uptime is 3 minutes, and I'm going to, and this Control C. I have logged out. Let's close this. Cancel. Now instance, this my instance, this has been running from last 3 minutes. Okay, this is running from last 3 minutes. Let's try to uh, hibernate the instance. Let's try to, because I want to hibernate the instance, I'm going to hibernate it. It's written when you hibernate your instance, the data on any instance store volume is lost. About this one. Okay, hibernate. So better the moment I click on hibernate, can you see it is stopping now? The instance is stopping. Okay, my instance is stopping. Now the conclusion is better why I have moved on to the Ec2 Instance Connect. I want to show you that instance was running from last 3 minutes. Now I have stopped the instance. Basically, I have hibernated the instance. The next time I am going to beta start an instance. Okay, next time I'll be starting an instance. The instance has been the uptime which was 3 minutes. So beta अगर तो वो hibernation में नहीं गया होगा, then next time I am going to start my EC2 connect, it will start from 0 minute, 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minutes. But otherwise if it had been gone to the hibernation, तो वो जो टाइमर है अप टाइम है वो 3 मिनट्स से 4 मिनट्स 5 मिनट्स 6 मिनट्स इट इज गोइंग टू इंक्रीज. So by doing so we'll be able to find out that whether my instance this has been into hibernation and whether my current state, my current RAM state has been stored or not. Okay, so we'll be stopping it for a while, then we'll move on. Okay, so we have been hibernated this, and let's try to relaunch it. Okay, so let's try to relaunch the instance. I'll click on this and let's start an instance once again. Okay, it is pending. Let's refresh it. Okay, so this is running. Okay, so this is running. Let's try to click on this one and connect this, and let's connect it once again. So let's again write uptime now. So better, now you'll see that instance that was running 3 minutes, the timer has increased to 7 minutes. Okay, otherwise अगर ये hibernation use नहीं करते तो 3 minutes का वापस वो 0 से start होता, it would have been started from 0 minutes and it has been increased to another one. So now since it was in the hibernation, so we have got the state has been active from last 7 minutes. That means the counter that we stopped it at 3 minutes, it has increased to 7 minutes because it has been to hibernation. So you can keep on uptime. So ये आप execute करते रहोगे बेटा. So it will be, now see, from 7 minutes, now it has changed to 8 minutes. So after every frequent intervals, you can check it, the instant, the time from which it has been active. So you can check it from here. So this shows us that the hibernation process that we have been executing, it is working successfully. So let me stop this. Let me exit this one. It's done. Okay. So I hope you are able to understand this process of hibernation. Let's move back after hibernation. Let's see the another topic. So hibernation is done. Now, Ec2 hibernation, there are few important points that you can have in the evaluation. So read about these points. Supported instance family. So hibernation ऐसा नहीं है बेटा, every instance family is going to support this. So there are few instance families that are going to support the hibernation. The families are C3, C4. So all the C class families, M class family of instance are going to support the hibernation. Not all families are going to support. So instance RAM size. So you need to have a proper RAM size. It must be less than 150 GB. Then only hibernation is possible. Otherwise, you cannot put the entire RAM data into the EBS storage. So the upper cap for this is 150 GB. Size not supported for bare metal instances. That means the very smaller instances. So it is not going to use for that. Amazon, Linux 2, AMI, Ubuntu, REHL, CentOS for Mac, Windows, it is working for all those operating system. Root volume must be EBS, elastic block storage, then only it will be applicable. Moreover, it needs to be encrypted. If it is not encrypted, even then hibernation will not work. Not instance store and large. Okay, instance store नहीं होना चाहिए and it needs to be sufficiently large. Available on demand, and it will be available for the reserved instances, spot instances. These are the few different type of instances we have already discussed. An instance cannot be hibernated more than 60 days. Another very important point. ऐसे questions beta I can ask you in the evaluation or in the assessments. So you need to have these small points are important to understand. So you cannot have the hibernation more than 60 days. So that's a maximum cap for the hibernation. Okay. फिर आता है बेटा हमारे पास EC2 Nitro. So Nitro लिखा हुआ, that means it's a more advanced type of thing. Okay. So up to now, whatever EC2 instances basically we have been using that were slow. So Amazon AWS constantly updates its EC2. Okay. Instance creation. So the latest, the updated one is the EC2 Nitro. So try to read it once. EC2 Nitro is the underlying platform for the next generation EC2 instances. So newer type of EC2 instances for the next generation, it is created with an architecture of EC2 Nitro. Now what is this Nitro? Beta, it is an advanced version which is going to have few advantages over the traditional one. क्या क्या advantages हैं? New virtualization technology है. It allows for the better performance, better networking operation, enhanced networking, HPC, high performance computers, and it allows IPv6 that I have told you we are not using as of now, but if we'll be using Ec2 Nitro, in that high performing computings, IPv6 can be used, and it offer higher speed EBS, so elastic block storage. Higher speed storage is provided Nitro necessary for up to 60,000 EBS IOPS, input output operations that are there, processing systems. For that, if you have more than 64,000 per second, then you can have it. So maximum 32,000 for non nitro. So up to now we have 32,000. Better underlying security, it helps in the security as well. Instance types example, so virtualized, so it is applicable this nitro, EC2 Nitro. Using this you can create the EC2 instances, and it is applicable to A1, C2. These are all the family classes of the EC2 instances, or these classes can be used for creation of EC2 Nitro. Okay, so these are the important one. Then coming on to the understanding VCUs. Okay, EC2 understanding VCPUs. Better read it once. Try to read it once. Okay, so understanding vCPUs. Beta, you might have observed whenever we are trying to create the instance, there you will see vCPUs written. What do you mean by vCPU? V stands for the virtual. V stands for virtual CPUs. Now, whenever you create an instance, beta, for processing, few cores, few processing units are allocated. Okay? So multiple threads can run on the CPU. Multi-threading is there. So core 1, core 2, core 3, core 4. So 8 vCPUs are there. So 8 vCPUs are there in 4 cores. That means in each core, ideally, normally, beta, you have two threads that are running inside a single core. Okay, this is a normal one. So you can increase, you can decrease this, you can increase this as per your requirement. So multiple threads can run on one CPU. Each thread is represented as a virtual CPU. Okay, when you will written as vCPU, better this simply means this is the one thread. Okay, so vCPU means one thread. So this is one thread, one thread, one thread, one thread. So total how many threads are there? Total 8 threads are there. So it is written as 8 virtual CPUs, which is comprised into 4 different cores. So one core is going to have the 2 threads. Now this is not the fixed one, but a single core can have a single thread also, or single core have the more than 2 threads as well. Okay. So example is M5 2x large. For example, M5 2x large, it is going to have 4 CPUs. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 CPUs are there. So it is having 2 thread per CPU. Okay, so it is having 1, 2 per thread CPU. So total of V CPUs कितने हो गए आपके पास? Total of V CPUs, virtual CPUs are going to be 8. So this is how V CPUs are classified. 4 CPU means 4 different core. CPU means cores. Okay, and vCPU means thread. So this is how it is going to be. Now EC2 optimizing CPU options. Now how you are going to optimize your CPUs. Now EC2 instances come with the combination of RAM and CPU. Every EC2 instance will have a combination of a RAM and vCPU. कुछ threads होंगे बेटा vCPUs and there will be few RAM. Okay, so if you'll see in the screenshot here, R4 2x large, default vCPUs is 4, default CPUs is equal to 4, default threads per core is equal to 2, valid core is 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, valid thread per core is going to be 1 and 2. So this is how the instances are going to be there. So if I need to go, let me go to Google. I'm simply googling EC2 instance types. Okay, EC2 instance types. So if you'll do EC2 instance types, let me stop this. Okay, so I have better simply Google this EC2 instance types, and the very first link EC2 instance type, I have got this. I'll visit this link, and just to show you that if you'll click any of the instance types, suppose this is instance type mac1.metal. So v CPUs beta kitne hai? That is number of threads is going to be 12 and memory is 32 GB. So let me move for the storage optimize. Okay. So here you will see the V CPUs is 2, 4, 8, 10, 16. So as per the requirement, the threads are going to be there. Okay. Instance features. Yes. So everywhere in every instance, you will see V CPUs are mentioned, which is going to tell you what is going to be the total number of threads that are present here. Okay. So, but in some cases, you may want to change the vCPU options. क्या बोला गया था? EC2 instances come with a combination of RAM and it has the vCPUs. But in some cases, you may want to change the vCPUs. You don't need to have beta 8 threads. You need to have only 2 threads, or if you need to have 16 threads, how you can change this? The number of CPU cores you can decrease it. Helpful if you need to have a high RAM and a low number of CPUs, no decrease the license cost. That means number of CPU cores. बेटा जितने ज्यादा आपके पास cores रहेंगे, it is directly reflecting the cost that is associated with the account. More number of cores you will have, more the billing is going to be. Okay, so you want to eliminate 2 core. You don't need to have a core 4 and core 3. You said that you can manage your work with first 2 cores. So if you are going to remove these 2 cores, it is helped to decrease the licensing cost. That means the overall cost is going to be decreased. And in under what circumstances you will be reducing the number of cores? Beta, it is helpful if you need a higher RAM and the lower number of CPUs. That means you need to have the performance oriented machines where it largely depends upon the computation, and you need to have the higher RAM, but you need not to have that much number of CPUs, okay, or vCPUs. In that case, you can reduce this number of cores and you can save on your costs. Second point is given the threads per core. That means in one core you can see there are multiple threads. Ideally, these are the 2 threads as I've explained in the previous slide. In one core you can have the 2 threads, but you can change this as well. So instead of 2 threads, let's suppose if you can manage the work with 1 thread, so you can do that as well. Threads per core, disabled multi-threading to have 1 thread per CPU. कि मेरे को ये वाला जो thread है ये disable करना है. I need to have only one of the thread in core 1 and one of the thread in core 2. It helps in the high performance computing machines. So beta core 1 जितनी इसकी processing capability है, and suppose this is core 1 is capable of processing 100% load. Now 50% will be processed by thread 1 and 50% will be processed by thread 2. But if you are eliminating, if you are removing this thread 2, that means 100% of the capability for core 1 Thread 1 will be using the entire 100% capability of processing. So that means it is helpful for the high performance computing, HPC, high performance computing. That means you can reduce the disable the multi-threading. आप number of threads को बेटा अगर reduce कर देते हो, then you will be having a high performance computing workloads. ठीक है? Only specified during the instance launch. So ऐसा नहीं है, once the instance is launched, you cannot change it back. So at the time of creation, when you are going to create the instance, you need to specify what type of CPU options. See here, if you will see here, it is written specify CPU options. Core count is 4. Threads per core, you will be writing here 1 or you will be writing here 3. So that depends upon how you want to utilize the number of cores or number of CPUs that you have with you. Okay. So at the time of creation, you can make the decision as per the business requirement, whatever requirements are. Now read on this capacity reservations. What are these capacity reservations? This will be all for our today's session. Read this slide. Capacity reservations.